Peace, family. Or Divine, coming to you again. I go by Divine Intuition here on YouTube. And I wanted to post this because I had found inspiration in a conversation I had today. And it was actually quite amazing how this conversation came to be. I just want to lower this a little bit. I don't want it to be over me. Just something subtle in the background. All right, so I'm trying to give my eyes a break because I've had my contacts on for a couple of days and my eyes get irritated. So this is me on a normal day with my glasses, just, chilling. Anyways, let me thank you all again for tuning in. I wanted to give a brief summary as to how this conversation or how this this video came to the forefront of actually being an inspiration to make a video. And okay, so let's get at it. So the title and discussion and the topic of today is deep diving, skydiving, and why do we need an instructor? I put spiritual edition because I'm not going to break it. I'm going to break it down, but in more spiritual sense where it's kind of looking beneath the surface, if you will. So I was on the phone with my dad today, and we were talking about, okay, let me backtrack real quick. For the past couple of videos, I've been realizing that I have been tapping into this very strong water energy. Now, this water energy just came This water energy just came full circle today. And I realized what it is. Now, let me go back to my conversation so then I can introduce how this all came to be. So I'm on the phone with my dad today, and, we just end up having like a random conversation. Well, nothing's random, right? We know that. But we end up having a conversation. We end up talking about a lot of different things. That's just like the natural conversations of like how they kind of flow with my dad and I. Again, flow as in water. So we're just kind of like flowing or whatever. And I think what I had told my dad was, he was like, if you would go anywhere, where would you go? If you had the choice to pick a vacation spot, where would you go? I said, you know what, Dad? I said, Bali. For some reason, Bali has been coming up to me. And I said, that sounds so nice. I don't know why, but, I always listen to Spirit, right? And so Spirit's been showing me Bali. Previous to that, it was like Florida. There's a specific reason why I'm Florida, and that's what triggered this whole conversation. So there's a specific place in Florida that I want to go, and I want to actually do a dive. Like I want to do a dive in a cave, and the cave is called something Devil's Cave or something like that, right? But when you look at it, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I looked at it, and for some reason, I've been drawn to it. Now, every time you get drawn to something, always know that it's your higher self. It's your spirit. There's a soul resonance there. And so I was telling my dad, I'm like, I've been wanting to do a dive. And he was like, like snorkeling or, a deep dive. I said, no, about a deep dive, excuse me. And so I started thinking, I was like, well, you have to have an instructor. So, I'd have to, do a whole instructor. I said, it's the same thing for skydiving, right? And so we're kind of just talking about this. Obviously, you need an instructor. And then I started thinking, but like, well, it's crazy that we need an instructor, And I said, well, why do we need an instructor? Of course, the reasons why was very obvious, right? Because you don't know anything. But then it started leading me into something way deeper. And this is where I started actually having to write this down, because it's like spirits talking to me. And it's almost like I already had a feeling that this was one of the conversations I wanted to have. Like, this was something that was brought to my awareness for a reason, right? And this wasn't because, oh yeah, because we don't know how to, obviously do, whatever it is. We don't have the foundation, is what Spirit said. So I took a couple of notes, which I will be referencing because it was a lot. And I had to write it down because this was pretty significant, right? So I put like, I said, diving period requires an instructor before we're able to dive on our own, which is fact. I believe that you need like 300 hours of experience with an instructor before you can go ahead and start diving by yourself. That also requires a certification. And so this is basically 300 hours would be considered, enough time, or what you would say not and like experienced, right? So you have this experience. If I'm not mistaken, it's 300. For some places it could be, like for skydiving, it could be 100 hours. I think for deep diving, I think it's 300 hours. It's something in between 100 and 300 hours. I remember when I was looking up the Florida location that I wanted to check out, I believe it said 300 hours, and that you have to be certified. You have to have a certification or whatever the requirements are. So I also jotted down here, I said, does deep diving require deep? So diving deep. So does diving deep require a helping hand before we can access or process the fundamentals of what a deep dive really is? Now, let me explain this real quick. I started realizing, and this is when, and mind you, I'm still on the phone with my dad, okay? So I'm like, oh my God, let me put this down. Give me a minute, keep talking. And I'm just jotting down, and I'm like, and he's like, hello? I'm like, yeah, I'm just, I'm taking some notes. And so I'm telling him, like, wow, there's so much coming to me right now. Like, I have to take these notes, but just, bear with me, right? And he was like, this is all you, because it really was. I was the one who thought of it. I'm like answering my own questions at this point. And I was telling him that a lot of, okay, in grammar school, we have learned about the water cycle, right? And I actually wrote that down too. Now, the reason that I bring up the water cycle, it's because you have, let's say you have, I'm not sure in which order, we can look it up, but I'm just going to name them before we look them up. I want to get through my conversation before we start actually going through the research. So you have precipitation, transpiration, evaporation, and then condensation. So that's not in exactly the same order, but it's those four cycles, right? And then I'm sorry, those are, what is it, like the 4 steps, and that creates a full cycle. Sorry. So I was telling him, I'm like, well, if you really think about it, the sky or the air is considered to be water. Now, interestingly enough, when you skydive, you're actually skydiving in a high altitude, but are you not skydiving at like 10,000 feet or whatever the case may be? Whatever. I don't even know what the range is. We won't argue about the range of how high, if it's 5,000 feet, if it's 10,000 feet. I don't care. It's the fact that it's an elevation. But you are diving through the air, which is technically water. I'm going to go ahead and prove my point. This is based off of my own intuition. This is based off of my own research, because I was researching some stuff today and I was like, oh, I definitely have to go live on this, right? So right after this, I have another live that I have to do, because it's going to be a part 2 for my live yesterday, which was a lesson learned, right? We live and we learn. So, all right. And so my point being is that with the water cycle, now I'm going to need the family to be very informed about the movie Interstellar. Now, I reference certain movies. However, Interstellar, I had just viewed Interstellar for the first time, which I know I'm kind of late on it. Such a great movie. But I only saw it last year for the first time, and I was stuck on it. So many truths are hidden in plain sight. And I understand that I have family who does not watch TV. They don't watch movies, and that's fine. Now, I will be referencing certain things, because how my spirit works is that we see codes, which we would consider truths, right? Now we see certain things and we absorb that, right? Now, how my intuition works is that when it's relative to what I'm speaking about, it pushes it forward in my mind and I see it, or that's the first thing that I reference to. And you know how they say, oh, the first thing on your mind is always what it is? That's basically how intuition works for myself and for the most part, but everyone is different. So I don't want to specify that that's how intuition works within everyone. Now, if you're doing a deep dive, right? You're going, let's say it's an ocean dive, a cave dive, but you're doing not snorkeling, you're doing like a water dive, right? A deep dive. There is something about diving deep. And this is what I wanted to specify. There's something about diving deep that requires us to have the fundamentals. Now, as I'm having this conversation with my dad, because we're still on the phone at this point, I wrote some more. And I said, what is it about diving deep? And then it hit me. I said, oh my God, it's the water. Now, let me take a sip of my tea real quick, because I gotta clear my throat. Okay. Sorry. That's better. It's about not getting lost. So if you need an instructor, it's to literally understand and bring something to your awareness. So like it's to implement something, right? So imagine that you're doing a skydive and you have no instructor. And this was literally the conversation I was talking to my dad about. I said, well, it makes sense, right? Now it makes sense to me because we literally could be having this instructor. We could literally be doing this high, like skydive, sorry. And we don't have an instructor, right? And so we have all of these mechanisms and all of these, these strings, and we pull the wrong string and we're already lost, So it's about not getting lost. Now, whether that instructor be your higher self, whether that instructor be soul family, but there is something about us diving deep that requires help along the way. Like I said, it doesn't matter what constitutes as the help. If we don't have the guidance, we shall say, then you get lost. And sometimes this could be reference to lost souls because they don't have the guidance or direction, right? And so another thing that popped up in my mind, I was like, oh my God, we were just talking about this. This is why I realized this is all about water energy. So I'm really tapping into a water energy. However, family, I'm a fire energy. So this is very something like this is very new to me. However, I feel like this is not new. This is familiar. Because I feel like let me clarify. My fire energy always keeps me on the go. This is something relatively new for me to be able to be in the water energy because my fire energy, I always have to be on the go. I don't have time for the majority of my life to sit here and not be on the go. So this is familiar when I have the time and the time to tap in. I start to pull in the water energy, which is definitely a feminine energy. Being on the go all the time is a very masculine energy. And I see the difference in myself when I'm like exerting more masculine energy because I am a fire sign. Fire sign is masculine. And water and earth is feminine. Fire and air is masculine. Okay. So Bruce Lee, this is the reason why Bruce Lee actually speaks about being like water. And I was like, oh my God, it's all about the water. Now, these are all of my notes. Another thing was water is the fundamental aspect of life, right? And water holds memory. So another thing about diving deep is that what if we don't remember the help that we've gotten, right? Or like what if we are shown one time something, but we don't remember it? this is the reason why, in an aspect, why we require to be experienced in certain aspects of deep diving, because we can just say deep diving would be considered ocean diving or skydiving, whatever. It holds memory. This is another reason why I hear a lot of times people will express about speaking to your water, putting intentions into your water, because water holds memory. Interestingly enough, we're gonna connect these little dots that I'm speaking about. Now, I looked it up, and our blood is 90% of water. Well, what is the percentage of the earth that's filled with water? Another thing is in the Bible, right? And we're just connecting the dots as to why this is going back to the water. Because remember, we started with, let me pause real quick because I want to get the exact term for like ocean diving and whatnot. Give me 1 minute. Okay, family, I got it. Deep sea diving. I knew I was missing something, right? Which I most likely will edit the title. But these deep sea diving. So deep sea diving and skydiving, one and the same. Not even playing with you. Because as above, so below. Literally. Another reference to the ocean or to water is the vastness of space. And that's what brought me back to, because they called space the cosmic waters, right? Now, this is what brought me to the Bible. So I think a lot of us are pretty knowledgeable that the Bible speaks in the beginning of Genesis, right? How the earth and the sky was created, but God hovered over the waters. The waters, what was revealed to me, was not the waters that are on our planet. It is actually hovering in the vastness of space, which would be called the waters, celestial waters. But the waters have always existed. So I personally, again, this is my perception, how I think, how I get information. I personally feel that the waters that they speak about in the Bible is not literal waters, but we're speaking about the celestial waters, which would be considered space. Again, if we go back to my mem, right, the 13 keys of self, which I will definitely post down because there is reference to that. I'll be referencing something very significant, and it's about how I was speaking about the womb, right? If the womb really is a place of birth, and that's what mem is. Mem is it's I was saying it's closed and it's open, but the one thing that is within that black hole, if there is life creating in there is fluid. When it opens, there is fluid, you know? So um I do feel like that's what they're speaking about. But again, if now we are hitting on point, then I'm going to go ahead and say that what the waters are was the birthing of a child or a body again. Now, this is where I was talking to my dad about Interstellar, and I was telling him like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "Oh my gosh, Pa, it makes total sense." I said, "Okay, so that means that the clouds are actually water." And I said, "Because it's really what we would consider like evaporated water, right? But this is why when there is so much evaporated water, it's it concentrates in the clouds and then it pours water, right? And so it's just kind of cycling in its own. Now, what I told him was the sun evaporates the water gets evaporated, and then it's concentrates or condenses, and then it's called condensation, and then I guess it precipitates or whatever the case may be. Um, but what I actually told him was, have you saw the movie Interstellar? And he was like, no. I'm like, oh God. I said, okay, I need you to watch it, right? I'm gonna tell everybody to watch it. Because there's so many things, like so many gems. And I literally gravitate to movies that have to deal with hidden gems. Shout out to Unlock Gems, by the way. Um, but Interstellar at one point they go to this planet, and I don't want to say too much, but what I will say is that this planet is frozen. And this is what I was telling my dad. I was like, well, they go and they look for life in another galaxy. And there's these three different planets. And the space team that went before them, they were supposed to, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, okay? I apologize. But I have to kind of explain it so that you guys can understand what I mean. So I apologize because this is a great movie, but I am giving you some spoilers. So spoiler alert. So anyways, long story short, there's these three different planets that the space team was supposed to go ahead and check to see if there was any real life on these planets habitable as like a planet of Earth, you know, something habitable for a colony, for the last remaining people on Earth. Um, they end up going to one planet, which is like all cold. It's like a frozen planet. But as they're descending into the atmosphere of this planet, you see clouds, but the clouds are frozen. I was like, yo, they actually hit one of the clouds, and they were like, wow, frozen clouds. And that was already like a telltale sign of what they were going to experience being on that planet, or what we would call a foreshadowing, right? So anyways, let's see. So then I started looking up into oxygen. And because we know that oxygen is what is above the water, and H2O, which would be a base of hydrogen, and oxygen, which would be below, I realized that there is a particle that is unbeknownst to people. And I kind of started tapping into way more. So let's get into it. This is the research portion. So let me do this accurately because yesterday it was an ultimate fail, and now I understand what I did wrong. But here, sorry. Let me just say. Let me just say. I like that one. So I have to double check which one it is on because I have quite a few different ones open. Here it is. So, and I've been on a tangent today, just research after research. But I like that. It keeps me busy. And I feel like I'm really tapping into some like deeper truths here, connecting puzzle pieces that I may have not been able to do because I've been on the go so long. Um, but I'm actually really excited about seeing the bigger picture, seeing in a broader perspective. So let me share my screen real quick for everyone. And let's go here. Okay, cool. So, all right. And so I wanted to show you guys that this is what the periodic table of oxygen is. Now, oxygen is one atom, right? But two atoms create the molecule of oxygen. So we're not talking about O2. We're just talking about one. Now, I wanted to show you guys, or I'm sorry, family. I wanted to show the family why I was interested in oxygen because I was trying to see the correlation between what oxygen has, which is why it, how would I say this? Where the water comes into play, you know? But then I saw something very interesting in here. And do you see this electron configuration? This stood out to me real quick. And I was like, well, why? Why does this come out? And so I realized and I started kind of digging deep, which that's actually helium. And so let's get into helium. Now it said I can share two screens. So let me make sure that everyone can see what I'm doing. Right. Let me see if I can stop real quick so that I can share another screen. I got this today because yesterday, not so much. Today, I learned the lesson. Oh, I see. It's easiest with two monitors. That's what it was saying. Well, we're going to have to make it work. So here, I already have it pulled up. All right. So this is the electron configuration of an oxygen atom. Now, do you see these two circles, 1 and 2? The inner and the outer. The inner circle is actually helium. And I will definitely show you guys what exactly I'm talking about. But then it just goes, and this is just a way of saying what is the shared electrons, right? And I consider other people's research, but I'd rather just do it on my own you know? And so right now what we're looking at is the orbital notation. All right. And so this is what I was looking at right here. This is perfect. And so there's another chart that I was just looking at, but I think that was under hydrogen. Let me just double check real quick. No, I don't want to look at that because that's all YouTube information. And so, yeah, so we're basically looking at the amount of electrons that are shared, right? And so if this is helium, which I'll definitely just show the family. Hydrogen, I was looking at hydrogen earlier, so I'm glad this kind of came up within the same aspect. Interesting that we have hydrogen here along with oxygen, but I don't see helium. Here we go. Okay, this is hydrogen, this is hydrogen, this is water, okay? This is what H2 and O looks like. And so this is where we would be considering like, okay, that's chlorine. That's not what I'm looking at. But this would be like H. I mean, I want to say like it would be like 2S or I don't know how they configure it, but that's what I'm trying to show everyone is that configuration of the electrons. This is what we're actually looking at, right? So interesting that oxygen has helium. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do helium. Oh no, not helium. All right. So helium structure is 2. Helium structure is the very innermost ring or, you know, I'm not even sure what to call it, to be honest. And I like to have my facts straight. But it's basically the inner layer. That's what it is, the inner layer of the atom of oxygen. So now we understand where that helium comes from. Interesting that helium is literally embedded within oxygen. And what is that? The second. So you have hydrogen, which is the first on the periodic scale. Then you have helium. Where does oxygen break down in? Let's see. Let me just double check you guys are still with me. Okay, perfect. Where is it? I'm all the way over here. Let's go back because I just pulled it up, didn't I? This is so tiny. Zoom a little. All right. So helium, hydrogen, helium, oxygen. All right. We have noble gases. If I'm not mistaken, hydrogen and I want to say oxygen are not within the noble gases. I am going to double check on that, but there is supposed to be 9 gases of creation. And if you look at the noble gases, there I believe there's 7. Like there might be 6 noble gases, but then you have other gases like helium, hydrogen, and oxygen. And I just want to check real quick. So it's number 8 next to nitrogen. Now, I want to see something because sorry fam. Gosh darn it. There we go. I think this goes by atomic weight, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it does. So the atomic weight, or yeah, if I'm not mistaken, hydrogen is the lightest, right? Helium, then lithium. And then you just keep going. So that's in the lightest to the most dense. All right. And of course, they're split off into different, categories and whatnot. Now it's not a, oh gosh. Sorry. You guys didn't see that, right? Because it was a pop-up. But anyways, what I was just showing was here. So hydrogen is here, helium is here, oxygen is here. And all I was saying was, because there was a pop-up in another tab, is that it goes by atomic mass. So I was just trying to see where oxygen, was on the table of elements. Now, helium, so we do see that helium is it within, right? So let's go to helium. Helium, periodic. Let's do it like that. All right. So we have 1s2. Okay. So I'm starting to understand that these are potential bonds that could be made. So it's 1 layer with 2 electrons. That's what I am seeing, if I'm not mistaken. Because we were already looking at the electron configuration. So ultimately, let's look at what helium looks like. And there was something else that I was getting to. Helium atom structure. Boom. Now remember, we just saw that helium is literally contained first and then oxygen. So I was like, very interesting. So something came to my awareness, and I put oxygen carries helium in order to make breathing easier. Now, there's something that is called a helix, or a helix or heliox, whatever. So this is what came about as I'm looking things up, heliox, and that's me. See, heliox versus helix, because I was on some other stuff, but we gonna get there. Helix. Let's say atom structure, if it even comes up. I don't. It might not, to be honest. Now, as I was looking some stuff up, this is interesting, but I don't think that that's what we're into right now. Um, helium, I was reading something about helium. And yes, you can see helium is first and then oxygen. So essentially, and maybe I could be mistaken, but oxygen wouldn't have He literally in the configuration, the electron configuration, if it didn't contain helium. So I started realizing, damn, let's go to helium. Let's read about helium real quick. Because this is where I found some information. And we're going to go to all. All right. So we know that it has 2 electrons, right? Yada, yada, yada. Let me see if the website came up that I was like searching under. It should be under purple. But helium goes back to the sun god Helios, which is a Greek god. Is that purple or is that just me? This is it. Okay. I kind of lowered the color or, the brightness of my screen because it reflects off my glasses and I really don't like that. All right. So this was it from earlier. So this is something that I tapped into and I was like, oh, I want to read it. All right. That's not what I wanted to read. So let's go down here real quick. Where did it go? Gas. Electron configuration is 1s squared. There it is. Okay. So the origin of the name is from the Greek helios, meaning sun. So it also says that helium was detected on the sun's corona. It was the first. Oh, I'm sorry. It was first detected on the sun's corona. So, what do they say are the main things that burn? I think it's helium and is it hydrogen on the sun? So stars, basically, right? Stars. So, you know how they say we are the stars? Why we have celebrities and we call them stars? This is kind of going into that aspect, and this is why I'm talking about diving deep, because sometimes we do need help and it's okay to ask for help. Help is humility, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I started realizing okay, so we're hitting onto something because Helios, meaning sun. And interesting that oxygen is above water, right? And so we're talking about, And back then, y'all, they used to worship the sun as God. Interesting that helium is within the oxygen and it's above water, which we would consider the sky. So it's almost as if the sun infused itself like in these particles, or we would say in these atoms, right? And so it reminds me of, oh my gosh. Whoo, I'm on a different level right now, y'all. All right, let's bring it back real quick. It reminds me of Osiris and Horus. Now, Osiris was said to be the god of Egypt, right? Now, interestingly enough, and I just have to say this real quick because I'm not trying to make this longer than an hour. So there are some things that I just put together right now that I didn't before. Well, we had already looked at the hydrogen bond, right? Or we already looked at the water molecule bond, which was H, the two hydrogens. But it was the oxygen bond that really got me stuck because I was like, wow, I've never even knew that helium was literally embedded within oxygen. Now, it reminds me of, and I was already saying that the sun, it looks to me as if because helium is considered helios, the sun energy, we actually breathe in particles of the sun if we want to be relative, right? Now, but the sun is embedded in oxygen. So what if helium, right, was the sun as Osiris? And I actually came to this realization as well, speaking to another soul fam, and we were talking about that helium, or I'm sorry, we were talking about that Osiris, when he was resurrected, he was embodied through Horus, because another reference here is Gods of Egypt, right? Now, if you watch Gods of Egypt and you see Horus, Horus literally has, well, it doesn't even matter if you do the research, right? You have the eye of Horus and the eye of Ra. The eye of Ra is the sun, and the eye of Horus is the moon. And the moon is always on the left side, the sun is on the right side. But that also means that Horus was the embodiment of both sun and moon because he embodied his father. What if Horus is actually what we would consider the atom, but the oxygen atom? I just thought of that. Now, that might be stretching for some people, whatever, to each his own. But these are just my theories. Not even my theories. I feel like this is just my ideology, and how I see it and how I'm breaking it down. And literally, Osiris was resurrected through Horus, but that's because he was embodied through Horus. So it's the same story told, which is Jesus, right? The whole Jesus Christ story is just the Osiris Horus story told again, where Jesus is the son of God and God was embodied within him. Same concept. But I'll leave it here for now. Let me know what you guys think. This was a little build, but I had to, this was a great inspiration for me to just get on here and do something different. Of course, we're tapping into a lot of water energy. And I realized also today that I actually might be going over an hour because I have to express the wildness of how things come full circle. So I had a conversation with my mom the other day, and we were talking about I was telling her that I was in so much pain just a few days ago that I nearly passed out. Like I'm having some, sorry, I'm having some personal things I'd rather not say, but it was something that was so painful that I had never felt before that I almost passed out. My vision started blacking out, whatever. I'm healthy. I just want to say that moving forward. But I'm healthy. It was just that experience that I was referencing to. And she openly shared something. And she said that, she knows that feeling of passing out. It's really not a good feeling. I'm not sure if anyone has any um, experiences passing out, but it's really not a good feeling. I feel like I start to sweat. My well, these are my experiences, right? And so I feel like sweating about to happen. Like my head starts to buzz, and my vision starts to black out. It starts to kind of tunnel, and then I get really weak. And so my mom had mentioned that that kind of had happened to her. She didn't know what happened, but that when she woke up, she actually did pass out in the bathroom. And when she actually woke up, she told me that she was in a certain position, which would be really relevant to the hangman tarot or archetype, um, something very similar to that. And the way that she described it, I heard spirit, I swear, I heard spirit say the hanged man. And I said, what the hell is that about? Right now, in my last video, which I was referring to, which is 13 keys of self. Who are you? But I put 13 keys of self mem, right? And mem is a Hebrew alphabet, and it means water. Now, I'm not sure if anyone is knowledgeable or knows anything about the Kabbalah tree of life. However, if you don't, I will briefly go ahead and speak on this. Um, and maybe I could find it here. Let's see if we can find it real quick. So, thank you to periodic table element. So let's look up Kabbalah tree of life. We were looking for the hanged man. Pathway. All right. So let's do images so that I can go ahead and show you guys, wonderful family, what I am speaking about. La la la. I see this one here, but I want one that actually shows Mem and the hanged man because it's literally in the same pathway. And so now I'm understanding why I tapped into Mem, why I tapped into here. This one might be a good one. Let's see. No, it's not a good one. It's bad. Maybe this one. The only thing is, I'm trying to. I was gonna try and like get deeper, but I can't because that's a website here. This one looks like it. The hangman is here, if you can see it, right? So it's between Had and Gebura, or Gevura, and Hod and Gevura. Sorry, Spirit was like, that's not how you say it. You're right. You're absolutely right. And Mem is right here. Okay. So I'm not sure who knows anything about the Kabbalah tree of life, but we're literally all working on this. Okay. So, you know how in the Bible it talks about the tree of life. You can eat from the tree of life, or you can eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, right? And so, regardless of what the Bible says, we're actually all working on this in our life. However, I don't want to get too much into it, right? So anyways, this is Mem, but I'm going to see if I can. It just sucks because then I'm going to have to open up a new tab, and I don't want to do that. So let me see if I can show you through a website here. Because it's not path 23, it's actually path 12. So here, let's just go here real quick. Perfect. This is Mem, okay? This is where the Hanged Man is. So interestingly enough, this is all about water. This is water energy. So I've literally been tapping into water energy, and I was just telling you that my intuition, trust their intuition. It forces us, like it forces anyone who's working in this pathway, it's forcing us to surrender to our higher powers or our higher forces and trusting their psychic intuition. I have been realizing like my psychic intuition has been on 25 million, you know? Um, but here, let's kind of go down real quick. And so this is the Hanged Man. And now it all makes sense. It really does. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so there it is. Mem. And I literally did something about Mem. So I started putting all of these pieces together, and I was like, wow, this is the reason why I am so in the depths of the water energy. And so we can read it real quick, right? So Mem means water. It is one of the three maternal letters along with Aleph. Then Aleph is what would be A, right? In ours. Aleph and Shin, which I actually tapped into Shin some time ago, and it corresponds to the three elements: water, air, and fire. Water, air, and fire. Okay. Life started in water. It is the most common element on the surface of our planet. Water flows, resisting nothing, pouring easily around anything that stands in its path. So I just wanted to conclude. Oh, let's get into this real quick, the Hanged Man, because I did say that Spirit showed me the Hanged Man. It literally said the Hanged Man, but this is kind of the same position that Mom told me about. And so I just want to go ahead and let everyone know that Spirit will always show you things when you least expect it, but you have to have like the eyes to see, if that makes sense. And this is how I navigate the energies, and this is how I put out my own content based off of what is currently happening with me or me putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And so the Hanged Man energy. And this is actually happening for me right now. So the Hanged Man energy, or the Hanged Man archetype, symbolizes a need to see the world in a new way. The card shows a man hanging upside down from a tree the tree of life, y'all. I was just talking about it. By examining the world from a radically different vantage point, one discovers all sorts of new ideas, images, and perspectives. This card suggests that we sacrifice our ego or our usual habits and give ourselves up to higher ideals. So, you know, Neptune, ruler of Pisces. My son is a Pisces, by the way. But yeah, I was just in awe, and literally, like, this is everything that I'm going through, you know? So it started making sense to me, and it started making me realize, wow, I'm really in this energy of water. And oh, you guys didn't see it. Let me try that again. All right. So this is why I have to kind of go back and forth. We're going to get there, you guys. So this is Mem, what I was saying. Okay. And it's associated with the archetype of the hanged man. And so this is what I was reading from, everything that I was reading from. Okay. And what I was saying was that mom was, when she spoke on her experience, how when she passed out, she said that this is how her lake was. Like, it was literally in a shape of a 4. And she said that her hands were out. But this is what Spirit told me, and Spirit told me the hanged man. This isn't the first time that I hear Spirit actually speak to me on certain things based off of the Kabbalah tree of life, and I always have to look it up. And when I do, I'm like in awe because I know that I'm pulling from these energies right now, you know? If you remember in my last video, not the one, this is where I was talking about water, but I was talking about this in the mem. And this is why I actually made a video based off of mem. So this right here, so this is that pathway, right? And so what I am personally feeling is that this is, I've already touched base on this. I've already touched base on this. I somehow am pulling from here. So I'm not sure if I went from Tifereth to Hod and I'm pulling from here. But however the case may be, I'm pulling from this energy right here in this pathway 12. And what was I saying? In my mem video, right, which was the part 2 to 13 keys of self, I remember saying that I tapped into Noon, and Noon is right here. And Noon is actually associated to 13. Well, Noon is actually the archetype of what we would consider the death archetype. And that is associated to 13. So it's very interesting how when you start to understand where you're at, where you're going, you'll start to collect the pieces together. And this was how I wanted to end this, because of the simple fact that this is what I just found out right before I decided to jump on this live. And I thought that it was everything. Look at, so letting go, these are the qualities, right? Letting go, stagnation, the quiet before the storm, sacrifice, mysticism, ocean, and water. That was interesting because I was like, oh my, that is me. surrendering to the higher self, dealing with suffering, punishment, feeling stuck or dependent. But these are all just the qualities. I could be experiencing some of these, or will be experiencing some of these within myself, or it will be shown to me through other people. However, right now, what I'm really in right now is this letting go, this mysticism, ocean and water, and surrendering to my higher self. That is what I currently feel at this moment. And that's exactly where I'm at. So, yeah, I wanted to go ahead and end here by saying that everything really does come full circle. It makes complete sense. I do want to thank the cosmic navigators, cosmicnavigator.com, for providing accurate information. And I will go ahead and end here. I hope you guys liked this live. Feel free to, and I didn't put it up, but looking for it. There we are. Like, share, and subscribe. A little late, but it's okay. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Peace, wholeness, balance, and love to everyone. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.